Welcome, everybody, to the Heartful of Hallmark podcast. This is a first for us today. I have author of Faking Forever, B. Lynn. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to finally meet you. We've been talking for a little bit, and it's so nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, you too. I'm excited.
So, what was the inspiration for Faking Forever?
Well, originally it just started out by when I first started the plot, I was kind of just looking at other people's work and like browsing around, thinking about what I should do next. And I kept coming across the whole friends to lovers trope. And I had a few ideas on that and I started putting them in my notes. And then when I started doing that, they expanded into something more until I officially was like, okay, I can't just like leave this all sitting in one little note file. So now I have to put it together. And so I took a bunch of things from my life. Like they're in the setting of Wildwood, New Jersey, which is a place that my best friend goes to visit every single year. And he kind of is like the blueprint of the male main character of the book. So that kind of gave me like a little bit of a surface level to start with too.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any favorite authors that you kind of took from any of their books that you personally love? Like some authors that I know love to take from, say, like a Danielle Steele.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the times when I'm writing, I take a lot of inspiration from Stephen Chbosky. He's always been one of my favorite authors growing up, but I really love his way of interpreting young adulthood on paper. I think he just has like a really, really phenomenal way of describing how it feels to be in that weird stage of like between the ages of 16 to 21. There's a lot that happens emotionally in between there. And so I took a lot of, I'll say, pointers from him when doing that. And I think also like another author I really love is Hannah Grace. Recently, I've come across her work, and I think she's really very sweet, like the way that she describes things when she's like writing anything. It's just very sweet and very soft, and I think that's another important part about adolescenthood and writing. I mean, it just you don't know it all, but you think you know it all, and there's just a way that you have to, put that on paper, I think.
Is there anything in this book that could be considered like a triggering scene, sort of like, say, a sexual assault scene or a violence scene that some people sort of stray away from just because of maybe something they've done in their past or something like that, or something that's happened? Is there anything like that in this book that can be like a trigger?
Yeah, you know what? Now that you say it with those words, I think there's one scene in particular. I'll have you know, like the rest of the scenes in this book, everything is consensual. I don't like to write things very much that depict DV or anything I'm just not very good at that, and I think that should be done by somebody who really knows what they're doing when it comes to that. I've only had my fair share of experiences and I can only describe so much with that. So, but with that being said, there is one scene that is we have our main female character who has an ex who um forcefully kisses her. Not so much in a manner that I would consider complete essay, but it wasn't consensual. And that, that could maybe possibly make a reader uncomfortable if they're interpreting it in a specific way. So, yeah, that scene maybe I would stay away from if it's not something you're comfortable with reading.
So you've said that a lot of this is very what's the word I'm trying to think of, spicy. How do you write these spicy scenes, these romance scenes in a way that makes everybody feel loved and comfortable when reading this type of a story scene?
So I really like that question. Oh my. Well, one, I like to say that often when I'm reading books and there is a spicy scene, I find it that a lot of the literature caters to females and not always males, when in fact males do read just as much as women do. And um, I think it's important to make it very clear within the wording and the literature that each person is having a good time. So when I do that, I try to use common words that people are using when they're being intimate, or just even casual words when you're with your partner and you're in the house. And, there's certain like little gestures physically and stuff that lets the reader know if you're reading it. And in person, it just lets somebody know, like, okay, this is a safe space. They're not being forceful. They're coming across and they're allowing me to accept or reject uh, whatever kind of affection this is that they're trying to give me. I think it's really important to, you can even do it without being abundantly clear about it, but I think it's important to make a way in your books, if you're going to write a spicy scene, to make a way of consent somehow. Let it be known somewhere in there that they're both on the same page. Um, Sometimes it seems like some characters can be like left out. They're just like focusing on one side of it, and then it feels very one-sided and odd and uncomfortable, you know?
So how to word this, right? How far do they go in the furthest scene? Like, is there anything that they've how far do they go in these acts?
In these
Do they
acts.
go
So
all the way, or is it more like of a flirty pull away and stuff like that, sort of?
we're talking like flirtatious pull away. They don't go all the way immediately. I'll say you got to read a little bit for them to actually go all the way and get there.
Mhm.
And I think even with that, I think maybe I display that once, twice, if anything. The majority of the rest of the spicy scenes, I believe I cut in half. So like it's implied that they maybe went further, but we don't go as far as to describe that for the reader. Or I'll say in one of the first seasons, oh my gosh, in the uh, chapters, they go as far as hooking up, and I mean that in terms of like not going all the way, but there's spice there. So like, you know, they do things, but it's not them going all the way every time, which I think is also really important when it comes to adolescents and writing. I mean, they're certainly of age. They're in their early 20s, I believe 20 and 21. So it makes sense that maybe they'll engage in some kind of naughty behavior with each other, but at the same time, you're nervous. They're young. They haven't just gone around and been spicy with everybody. So you have to like imply that, like, okay, they've been friends for so long. This is going to be awkward. You know what I mean? There's going to be some moments where they're going to be unsure, and so I think that's important too, to put that with the adolescents, because you're not just jumping into it. You know what I mean? You still are kind of figuring yourself out. I mean, as humans do in real life, you're not going to just jump into it.
No. So can you tell us just a little bit about what this book is about? What is Faking Forever about in a non spoiler way?
in a non-spoiler way, I would say, to keep it very sweet and concise, it's really just about taking hold of what you want in the short amount of time that you have time to do so. So, like, I mean, these characters are two main characters. They only have so much time to spend together for the summer. So, um, I mean, that's kind of where the whole forever comes in, because it's really not forever. The whole thing is to imply that nothing is forever. And so, because of that, you know, YOLO, just like, do what you want to do. You only live once. So, make these decisions full throttle with your heart. Don't second guess anything. And I think when people read it, they'll also see that, like, that's implied. Both of our characters are very ambitious young people who don't want everything to keep moving so fast. They're scared of their future. And that's another great point too, is I really try to make it abundantly clear that it's okay to be scared of the future, but it's going to happen. It's inevitable. And I mean, whatever you do now, it doesn't make it forever, but certain things will be forever. And that's kind of the whole point, just live while you're young. Just, do what you want. And if that means you only got 3 months of summer to do it, well, then do it.
So I did want to ask this.
Uh-huh.
Since this is a romance book,
Mhm.
is there another genre that you would like to try and write at some point that you've never tackled before? Or
So,
that would take you out of your comfort zone, sort of?
you know what? There's a few that I have been trying my hand at in the files. Um, oh my gosh, that train is so loud. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
Um, but yeah, there's, a genre I'd really love to, like, try my hand at, that I think I've been doing pretty well at, and it's in the files, is thriller. Um, Thriller mystery kind of stuff. I think for me, I guess it's difficult because I've only I've always wrapped all of these other themes around romance. I've never wrapped romance around another specific theme. So, you know, one of the things that I want to try is, like, okay, romance can be just like a background feature, and we'll make this mostly about thriller or mostly about horror. I don't know if I'd so much try horror, but I think one that I would like to try to dabble in next is fantasy. That's one that I really don't know if I can do, but, like, it does not hurt to try. I really am into films, and I would like to further my schooling career into, like, going to film school, and I think that would be really, really important for me to get, familiarized with before I, like, actually move on to that, because fantasy movies are so awesome. Like, if you take a fantasy book and you make it into a film, it's really so sick, and I'd love to be able to interpret things in a really creative way, fantasy wise, on paper. I think it's very cool how people who write fantasy can do that.
So we spoke a little bit with films. For our core audience here, are you a fan of the Hallmarky type of style? Does that do anything for you as a fan? Or what type of, like, a rom-com fan are you? Do you prefer the more, like, sexy R-rated stuff? Or do you prefer the more calm, tame G to PG style?
So I guess I would say PG, because when I think about it, now you're also talking to somebody who was, like, raised on Hallmark movies. My family, very, very in tune with what was going on the Hallmark Channel at all times. So, like, I really love their cutesy, gentle way of displaying romance. I think everybody needs to remember at the end of the day that not everybody is going to be sexual or going to be promiscuous or going to be out there like that. Sometimes relationships are just soft and you ease into things, and that people live a more cottage core cookie cutter life. You know what I mean? But when it comes to like the R-rated movies, I won't say I dislike them. I guess I'll just say it's hard for me to take it seriously. For example, a movie like 50 Shades of Grey. I can't really take it seriously. I get it. I think that's great. And obviously, there's a lot of people out there who thoroughly enjoy that. And I can understand why. Um, but for me, I much rather prefer movies like To All the Boys I Loved Before, uh, My Life with the Walter Boys. Like shows like that and films like that, I think are very, very cute. And I really like it. Now, if we're talking about like adult movies with romance movies, I'm like a huge fan of Adam Sandler. I like his way of like romantic comedy. I think it's very cute, but still gentle and still adult at the same time. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to go there all the time.
Yeah. With our show here, with our talks, we normally stay PG-13 and below.
Mm-hmm.
And just because with the core group here, the core just age range, it's normally the calm G, maybe a PG, potentially a PG-13. Probably like, say, The Holiday is as far as most of this crowd will probably go. A little bit of sex here, little bit of tastefully done nudity, sort of sometimes. But with something like, say, a 50 Shades of Grey, that's a very niche audience.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not done right, specifically with the writing, I haven't read the books myself, but knowing how the script was taken from the book, it's just, it was tamed down. It just
Yeah.
felt like it was more shock value. And for me, in a sex scene in a book or a film, if it's tastefully done and it has a purpose for the story, like yours is, right?
Right, right.
If it's done so many times where it's just scene after scene after scene after scene, then the viewer or the reader will just feel it's too repetitive and start to get bored by it, because thus you're
Yeah.
not building any more chemistry between our lovers.
Yeah, there's no room for surprises. There's no room to anticipate or wonder what's going to happen next. And I think with like having realism in movies and in books, I think it's important to remember that like you don't get to see every scene with them. They very well could have made out yesterday. We don't know that. That's like the beauty of it all. You know what I mean? It's just kind of also creating more to the story around what it's already given you.
Exactly. One show I bring up all the time is I forget the name of it. It's a show on Netflix about these two younger teenagers. They might be about 17, 18,
Mm-hmm.
and they go to the same exact bookstore in New York City, and I think it's the Strand. I could be wrong, but they go every other day or so, and they hide notes in this same book, and they fall in love through these notes until they eventually meet. There's very little in way of them together. It's just their characters going back and forth with notes, and each episode, one episode is from the guy's perspective and one is from her perspective.
Okay.
Would you ever want to try and tackle a story like that in book form or in a script form?
With like two point of views.
Mm-hmm. Like one
So,
chapter is his, one is hers.
gotcha. So that's what I do in Faking Forever
Mm-hmm.
already, which I think and I've like thought about this for like a few times this week. I've been thinking about it because what I would like to do is learn how to convert my novels into scripts. And a part of that is figuring out how to section the point of views and how to really get into detail of like the quirkiness of each character. I would also maybe like to try in the future entire book perspectives instead of switching chapter for chapter. Um, it's more clean cut and more straightforward. I think that appeals to more adults, which is helpful. Yet at the same time, there's just something about doing the dual POV that I really, really like, and I don't know why. I just think it's so fun to swap out each character and jump into somebody's head for a little bit that isn't the same one. You know what I mean?
Yes. Before we move on, I do have a couple comments in the live chat here. And
Yeah.
this one is coming from Sav. Hey, welcome, Sav. It's awesome to have you in here. And then this
Hi.
one is from Lizzie. She has a question for you. Hi, B. I'm an avid reader and would love to know if there was any specific books or authors that influenced your approach to writing your book.
Well, okay, so there is, oh wow, I'm blanking on the author's name. John Green. So, okay, if anybody knows John Green, they know those books like The Fault in Our Stars or what is it, Paper Towns? I think I'm saying that right. Um, two books of which I think really were helpful with this writing process, just because, again, I'm not sure if I stated earlier, but I'm only 25 years old, but my brain has moved past the stance of being a 20-year-old. So sometimes I need to like go back to those younger books and like tap into what my brain would be like when I was 20. And those books really helped with that. I think even with some of the scenes that are like more into nature and more with like describing storms and things like that. Uh, as crazy as it sounds, but like Charlotte's Web and Coraline, like those are really good books to give you more vocabulary on being adventurous. And for a moment when I was writing it, I kind of lost my sauce and I was not creative whatsoever. And I was not really sure how to describe those scenes. So it was very helpful to read some of those books, and not the entire book, but just like little scenes here and there to just give you like the mindset of a child again. Sometimes you just have to be a kid again so you can like really tap into the fears of the character or like what they were really feeling.
Mm-hmm. And the last comment for right now is also from Sav, and he says, "Oh, so films like a My Best Friend's Wedding or The Wedding Singer." Yes.
Yeah, I love those. Those are really, really good films. And I think The Wedding Singer, that's like a really good description of how I like to put my play on subtle comedy within my books, because I'm no comedian and I don't find myself to be very funny. But if I come across something in my wording, or if I'm like doing a paragraph and I think, oh, that's like kind of funny, then I'll just make a joke out of it, because there's got to be some kind of like lightheartedness there somewhere. And I think Adam Sandler's movies really help me with putting like, it doesn't have to be raunchy adult comedy, but it's just a comedy that someone of our age would understand. And it makes the story a little less romance based, serious based, you know.
Mm-hmm. And with Adam Sandler, he's taught me with comedy. He does this all the time in all of his films. The number one rule of comedy to me is laugh at yourself. Don't be afraid to laugh at you. Because if you
Exactly.
can't laugh at you, nobody else is going to laugh at you.
That's so correct, though. And I think I remember reading him saying that somewhere. And I really, really like that he says that because it's very true. I mean, I think the entire writing process of anything I do is quite comical. I don't take myself seriously whatsoever. Every time I look at the book and the physical copy, I have to laugh to myself because I have to think I did this and I like actually sat down and dedicated some real time to it. And I couldn't even tell you some of the like scenes in there. I've forgotten a lot of them. Like I have to go and remind myself that I did them. And some of the scenes they're so serious, but then I giggle because like it's from a teen perspective. And really that's what I want to is for people who are older, if you're reading this, you have to think about the time when you were like that age and everything felt like the end of the world to you and it's so over dramatic. And I laugh back when I like look at some of the wording because it's true. That's really how young adults, some of them behave. It's just like too much, so much, overwhelming. Everything is going to end.
Yeah, and in the romance world of our age, because I'm the same age as you,
Yeah.
a lot of everybody goes, well, I don't want to settle down yet. They're more into like the hookup scene.
Yeah.
So that's probably why like all these books say like a 50 Shades of Grey or
Mhm.
a After or something like that are so big, and they might influence a way that someone thinks. So with a lot of people, it's more of just like hookups now, and instead of building this real bond with this one person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's more
Um,
like, let's go on like, oh, I don't know, Hinge or something. If
yeah.
if that's a dating app. I have no idea. But
Right, Noah. There's an influx in people our age who, and I definitely think that the book community has a lot to do with it because a lot more people read than people think, honestly. And with the influx of like, let's for example say the hockey player trope. I've been seeing so many of the hockey romances, and I don't think that they're bad. I think they're kind of cute. But how many can you do? You know what I mean? How many ways can you create this scenario before it's unbelievable now?
exactly.
How many times can you make characters in college hook up with each other before it's like, okay, have you guys gotten to know each other at all? There's no dialogue between the characters. And I think there's some readers can get so distracted with the events, we'll say, that are
Yeah.
happening in the book that they forget that the characters haven't even been on a date. They know nothing about each other's career choices or anything like that. And then it's like, well, aren't that's what we're here for, guys? They're in college. This is a university series. And so far we've had 20 scenes and they're hooking up in his dorm or something like that. And again, I think there's somebody out there who relates to that, and that's quite all right. But I think I just miss having dialogue between characters, and that is like one of the big parts of how I write my books. I love dialogue. I want
Mhm.
to really feel like I'm sitting next to the character in real life. I want to feel like I know them in person and I could tell somebody about them, you know?
Yes. With our ages now, it is more of just, hey, you're really cute, so let's go in here and hook up really, really quickly. And then about 95% of the time, you don't see that person again. And with these books, I can't tell you how many times I've read one book, and it starts out, they meet, they hook up, and then eventually they see the same person at a party, and they get angry because they're with another person. And I'm like, well, that kind of writing where it's literally one hookup, you don't even know each other's names.
Yeah. It's like it's like you hooked up one night and then in the course of 24 hours, you manage to gained some kind of longing hatred for whoever this person might potentially end up with, even though you don't know their name or their age, if they even go to your school or anything of that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of unrealistic to think about because, okay, think of the folks who maybe live their lives a lot through books and reading, and now they're probably walking around thinking I can hook up with a guy and then we're gonna like fall in love afterwards, or like he's gonna keep chasing me, when in fact that does not happen to anybody. I mean, maybe it does to some people, but 99.9% of the time that doesn't happen, and it's kind of unrealistic even for the younger ones who decide to maybe want to read a little bit more mature.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what college is like. I'm going to read this book. Now they have an unrealistic expectation that someone named Mark is going to hit them up for the rest of the school year.
Yes. We have two more comments, and I don't want to keep you for too long, but we have two more comments. One question is from Lizzie, and she goes, "Was there any particular scene or character that you just fell in love with during the writing process?"
Yes. Thank you, Lizzie. I love this question so much. So the two main characters, their names are Joshua and Paisley. Those are our characters that they are each other's love interest. They are the two people we get the point of views from. The character that I fell in love with was neither of them. They have two peers, Sierra and Bo. Bo is like Josh's really close friend, and Sierra is Josh and Paisley's really close friend. Bo was somebody that at first when I created him as a character, I didn't really think anything too much of it. Like, I just needed to create a side character. I gave him the details, gave him some characteristics. It seemed fitting. But as I started getting like towards the end of writing the book, I had gone in so much depth with who he was as a character. Oh my gosh. Jeez. I had gone in so much depth with the character that I kind of had felt like, okay, now I can no longer leave him behind. Like, he has so much of a backstory.
Yep.
Maybe I won't.
Oh. Did I lose her? I might have lost her. Shoot. I can't hear you, sadly. Let me see. Let me try this. Shoot. Well, we were just about done anyways, but we will definitely have you on one more time. What would you be interested in coming on to talk about a rom-com around the Christmas time? Okay. Awesome. We will come back in here next time. Check it out. I have her link down below to where you can buy the book Faking Forever on Kindle or a paperback, whichever version you prefer. But like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify, buy the book, and until next time, everybody, we will see you guys next time.